Walton Polytech University, and Dr. Sonia Lewis.
And how maybe the US can learn a little bit from other areas. Not that the US is not perfect, but maybe we can learn a little bit from different perspectives. So, do you want to maybe kick us off?
Yeah, so something we were talking about earlier today, so great question. I love how you're tracking. Is that one of the big points of conversation we see happening in the media here in the US is just the cost of education and how it's really challenging for people to get over their initial spend. And one of the things that we found interesting was that when we looked at Canada's student loan policy, is that Canada does fund their students with a student loan, but it's interest free as of April 2023. And so let's say that a student borrows 50,000 to go to school. That student only has to pay 50,000. When we look at a different scenario, someone here in the US could borrow 50,000. Literally a year later it could look more like 75 because of the way interest compounds. And so we hear a lot of people say, "Oh, they should just pay their loans." They should. But when interest compounds at a rate unseen, different than a car note, different than a credit card, it makes it really challenging for someone that needs to utilize the student loan system here in the US to be able to afford to repay, plus cost of living and all the other things that we see in the economy. So, something I was saying that I would be really interested in seeing with different administrations, I don't know if it'll be this one, could be the next, we really want to look at other countries and their model as to how they support their students going to college. I think the US has a phenomenal education system, but it is becoming very, very unaffordable. And it is a $1 trillion student loan industry that has a broken faucet. It's hard to repair if we're putting people into debt that is compounding at an enormous rate. So when we hear people say, well, the US should make education free, okay, or it should subsidize their cost, okay. But then we also have to think about the people that are in repayment. What are we going to do to help those folks so that they can get ahead? Our economy is suffering because people are not purchasing homes, land, and investing because they have a student loan the size of a mortgage already. And we know this because we work with people anywhere from $20,000 in student loan debt. I was just telling Laura we helped someone with 997,000, close to $1 million, just last month. He's a doctor. He's a phenomenal doctor. But if you think about that, Laura, you don't want your surgeon operating, a neurosurgeon operating on you with $1 million in student loan debt. They might be thinking about their student loans and not your brain, right? So we really want to, hope. I know
Yeah.
it's a real thing. So we really want to, we look to our lawmakers and we hope that we create conversations like this so that people can consider what would it look like feasibly to help people get over that debt. But I think Canada is doing a phenomenal job. There were recent changes, as you hear, as of 23, that they said no interest on the loan debt that is owed.
I think some of this as well ties into the work that Sheila does, like when Sheila's
Yes.
working with, couples that are looking at getting married or maybe early in the marital stage. And some of that student loan debt, you talk about your neurosurgeon not wanting to have debt on their mind while they're performing surgery, but the stress that that financial situation can cause for couples. So Sheila, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, we address finances as part of the inventory or the relationship tests that couples take because it is very enormous. These young couples are going into a marriage and both of them already have almost a mortgage payment by themselves just in student loan. So how are they going to build a life together in a home? Because that's what everybody wants to do when you start getting married. You want to have a place to live. How can they do that when they already have virtually 2 other mortgages to pay for? So finances is as anybody knows, a big part of marriage. And it can be a very stressful part of marriage if you don't have a handle on it or if you don't see the same goals and finances and the budgeting together. That is a very big challenge for the young couples getting married today.
Mm-hmm.
And I can talk about it as well from the trades and technology perspective. So I oversee, which is an interesting model, at a university. I oversee the skilled trades workers. So in Canada, it's considered a red seal, is the degree for skilled trades workers. And it's a different debt portfolio because these are skilled trades workers that are working and then coming to school for a finite period of time to get the next level, and they go through typically 4 levels to get their red seal. So they are working while they are going to school. So the debt portfolio isn't the same. So the funding model through the system is not the same. They get we call it employment insurance or employee insurance, while they're going to school for the 3 to 10 weeks for their skilled trades training, and then they go back on the tools. Similar to a doctor, I often say that skilled trades workers, we think about them as like that blue collar, dirty industry. Every one of your lives in this room is dependent upon the work of a skilled trades worker. You flew in a plane to get here. That's skilled trades.
That's good.
You drive down the road. The electricity in this room, you're trusting that it's not going to be faulty and burn the place down. So again, it's like, lives are dependent upon the work of skilled trades workers, and the last thing you want them to be worried about is debt, is that financial burden. So we've created a system in Canada where you come to school, you get your skilled trade, you go back on the tools, and you earn phenomenal money in the industry before you have to come back for your next level. And it's quite different from a traditional undergraduate. I think we've all had some experience. And who in this room has done undergrad work? Right. So almost everybody in this room, or everybody in this room, has had some sort of educational experience. There's a cost associated with it. You don't want the cost to limit the pathway that you take. So it's different perspectives, very different perspectives of the 3 panelists sitting on the stage for what we do. And so as the Canadian looking to the Americans and hearing the different models, what do you think based on what we've talked about so far, and we'll revisit this as we go along, what do you think maybe the US could take away from some of the different perspectives that are out there?
Well, I know for sure interest-free education is something I think thoroughly about. I think there are a couple of things that we were talking about when we were sitting out for breakfast. One of the things I also think that the U.S. is trying to implement with this administration, I was just telling Laura, I think they're doing it wrong, is that there should be a standard of borrowing for the degree you want to study. So, for example, if you wanted to study something like butterflies, butterflies are very important, but do we need to borrow $250,000 for butterflies? I don't know. Don't kill me. I don't know. And if you have a grievance with it, please just show me why. Give me data. All right. So, and I think that's the other thing. There should be data-driven decisions. One of the things I was telling Laura that's missing is that we're seeing a lot of policy changes, but no data. So when recently the administration that is in office had said, I don't know if anyone's familiar with this, they said that certain degrees are no longer going to be funded at a professional level. Did anyone see that? Nursing was one of them. Well, I was very, very concerned about the particular, and I didn't leave you. All my family are teachers. I was coming to you. I was coming over here. Nursing and teaching, let's just stay there. There's already a shortage. So you're telling people that really want to go into, and first of all, that want to go into these fields, let's just stop there, that now there's no money, so what must they do? And then when you think about historically who's going into those fields, they're from marginalized communities. So there isn't a lot of money just sitting around to go be a teacher or to go be a nurse. And then you want them to do a private loan, but then there's subjective borrowing there. I mean, it could go down rabbit holes, I'll stop. So here's the challenge. I don't know when this administration had made that particular announcement, was that wise? Because are we saying we don't need teachers? Are we saying we don't need new nurses? And are we saying that only people from certain communities can go this direction? And then those people may not want to go in that direction. So then who's teaching? And I was just telling Laura, we don't want our neurosurgeon to be learning from YouTube. Well, I hope you don't want your neurosurgeon learning from YouTube. So I think there's bigger conversations that need to be data driven when we talk about responsible borrowing. And I don't know if, not even just this administration, I want to be very clear. Any administration has taken the time to put a proper group of people in place to research and really look at where our country is headed. When we think about countries like Canada and the US, we think highly of them, I would hope, in certain spaces of education, right? But we're going to see a decline go down when we can't say we compete with the very best and we can't help fund it. So I think we're going to start to see some changes, Laura, over time, that we're not going to be as competitive as other countries.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And we've faced in Canada, you talk about, like marginalized populations. So we had a shift in the funding for our students. We had a decrease in the number of international students that we were permitted to bring into Canada. So the government put in place, I won't bore you with all the details, and I actually don't even know all the details because it's so convoluted. But the government put into place limits on the number of international students that we could bring into the country. At my institution, Kwantlen Polytechnic University, our student population was about 40% international. It's about 38% international. If you're aware of international student funding, they pay about 4 times the domestic rate. So the funding that we receive from the government to fund domestic students, it needs to be supplemented. The system that we have created is that it needs to be supplemented by international students. And a lot of those international students go into business, go into nursing. Like, these are strong programs that we have at the institution. And now those student populations are not there because the limits that have been put in place. So we now have reductions in the student numbers because of student funding for those key areas that we need supports in the system. Like the US, we're facing reductions in numbers of nurses, reductions in numbers of teachers. We have an area in the Lower Mainland where there were not enough teachers, so they pulled all of the educational assistants to become teachers. So they were on a letter of permission to teach. So your children, who in this room has children? I have to put my hand down because I don't. So your children were not being taught by skilled teachers. They were instead being taught by educational assistants that were really focused on, educational assistants are more focused on students that have learning disabilities or differently abled students. they're now primarily responsible for your student learning. Not necessarily a bad thing, but not the career path that they chose. And again, it's this funding model that's created these disparities and are directing students in directions that they don't necessarily want to go, but they have to go because they don't want to get into phenomenal debt. So Sheila, you probably experienced that in like some of the conversations that you spearhead.
We do, and based on some of that conversation, we are actually in the middle of developing some new relationship tests to specialize in what we call first responders. Those would be the nurses, the doctors, the firemen, the policemen, the emergency, because of the special stress that they're under. And part of that is the financial stress. It's also the stress and the trauma based on that job. You know, you come on an accident and you know, it's a gruesome accident. You know, how do you take that home and deal with the spouse on that? Or what if both of them are first responders? How are they handling the trauma and the stress? And and part of that is the finances go along with that. So you've got all this stress piling up on top of each other. So how are they handling their marriage? How is their marriage being strengthened and not pulled apart by all the stress and all the external influences that's going on in their life? So we're in the middle of developing, like I said, what I call first responder relationship inventories to help address some of those needs.
And Sheila, Sonia, pardon me, you had talked about earlier today, we had chatted about like some of the populations that you're wanting to support from different regions of the world. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're seeing just such a surge of different populations here in the U.S. that need support with student loan repayment. So I think that one of the things that we have to know is that there are still a lot of first-time college goers that are being supported by different populations. Let me give you a good example. So something I didn't realize until more recent is that we have a huge community of Spanish-speaking parents that need support. But that wasn't on my radar at first because you'll think about, well, their child speaks English, right? And they're with the primary debt. But then there's a lot of parents that have Parent Plus loans. And if anybody knows about a Parent Plus loan, it is not, it's not friendly. And so,
sorry, can I pause you for a
Yeah.
sec? So for somebody that does not know what
okay,
this is,
I've got
would you
time
mind
for that. Yeah, so
giving a
a
little
Parent Plus loan is a federal loan that is given by the government with an enormous interest rate, close to 8%. And they've made it to where you cannot repay on it while your child is in school, but it's still accruing interest.
Wow.
So you almost want to pay while the child's in school, right? It's everybody like, oof, I know, right? So what's happening is we were meeting more recently a lot of parents who are not speaking English as their primary language and said they needed support. They don't know what they signed. They don't know how to pay this bill. They don't know what to do next. They just wanted their child to be able to go to school as any parent would. But even when you think about just traditionally taking out a student loan, has anybody ever read their promissory note, all 30 pages? No, you just sign and went. And you probably didn't even do exit counseling, or you might have not even been required, depending on when you graduated, to do exit counseling on your student loans. So we're seeing a lot of parents have questions around, what do I do with this? Why do I have to pay this? Why is it so much? Because again, remember what I just said. The student loan could have been $5,000. Now, little Bobby's in school 2 years later is at 10. How do we get here? Because of the interest compounding. So we're wanting to create support for different language models to be able, I feel like if they had enough education and understanding early on, they could be able to tackle repayment a little better. But also, and this is not the space today, but what are the alternatives, even for those parents or students, to not have to use a student loan? And are they inclusive in that conversation?
Yep. And I think you raised an important, I mean, everything that you just said was important, so don't get me wrong. But in the middle of that, you said something that really I want to talk about, and that's what we sign without thinking about what we're signing. Sorry, oh yes, exactly. So as a dean, I often have to go into classrooms and have really difficult conversations with students. Let me rephrase that. I go into classroom, I get the student, and I bring them to my office to have a really difficult conversation.
Yeah.
And the conversation is often when you went and applied to the university to come into skilled trades training or to any aspect of the institution, you went through this multi-page document, and that document has unbelievable legalities in it. Your roles and your responsibilities as a student in the institution, your responsibilities to know policies and procedures, your responsibilities for the debts you incur. Sometimes those debts are related to tuition, but sometimes it's when you borrow a book from the library and you don't return it on time. Hard to believe that in this day and age we still have books in libraries, but we do. So we put students in this position where, you know, your age of majority, so you can sign and commit to things that you don't even know what you're committing to because you don't necessarily understand the long-term impacts. And you face those impacts throughout your education, but unfortunately you also face those impacts once your education is finished. And it carries with you, you know, talking about the neurosurgeon with almost $1 million worth of debt, you know, and again, Sheila, the conversations that you must navigate with people that made these decisions early on when it's, all I want to do is become a marine biologist, because that was my dream as a kid, was I wanted to be a marine biologist. So I have no idea how I became a dean, but here we are. But I applied for college, and my mom worked at a college, my dad was a teacher, and they said, yeah, I've got a history of post-secondary education. Let's get you in there. So I signed up for things. Early on in my education, I took out a student loan. I will admit that I used that student loan to go traveling. Not proud of that one, proud of the travel that I did. But eventually it came back to haunt me because I had this debt that I had forgotten about, because I thought, free money as a 19-year-old student that gets to go to Greece using that student loan because my parents paid my tuition for me. So we kind of don't think sometimes about the supports that we have in place for people coming into higher education that are making these commitments with government, with private institutions, and how the long-term residual impact of those. So Sheila, do you want to talk about that from your perspective, and then we'll hand it over to Sonia?
And that it exactly gets into it, the long-term impact. When you borrowed that money to go to Greece, you probably didn't think about, if you got married down the road, what's that going to do to your marriage? What are you bringing into your marriage? You know, you may have had the, I don't know, say 20,000 in that, but what if your spouse has another 20,000? You're already into 40,000 at that point, and then the wedding. You know, you're going to borrow probably for that wedding too. Finances, it has such a big impact on marriage that people don't realize when they're at the time they're just wanting to go to Greece, and they're not thinking about what down the road that impact has, because they don't really maybe understand what they did or got into it, or the interest that they're going to be paying. Is that 20,000 is now 40? How do they pay that back? Want to start a family, start a marriage, have the American dream of that, and how do they go about doing that when their handcuffs are already on? So how do they go about doing that? And that's a hard conversation. I don't know what the right answer to that is, but each couple needs to figure out what that answer is and face it head on. It's all about conversation, and they need to have that conversation up front, knowing what they're getting into, because maybe the future spouse of the neurosurgeon doesn't want to go in walking into with $1 million worth of debt that they're probably not going to see, you know, themselves out of probably until retirement or more. So maybe they need to know that up front, and maybe that's something they're not willing to take on.
Just context for, his name is John, he's watching. How did he get close to $1 million? Is that he is a parent of what we call in the sticky middle. And so the parent doesn't have enough money to be able to pay for their education for their child in full, but they don't make money to where they can get a full grant either, right?
Yeah.
So we see a lot of our parents here in this economy in what we call the sticky middle. The government says you're not poor enough, but you're not rich enough to self-pay. And then he also lost his wife, so he had to take on Parent Plus loans for 2 children that also wanted to be doctors. So we've got a family of doctors, right? And he wanted to absorb the debt so they didn't have to, which actually worked in his favor. So now they're all debt free because he was able to get forgiven through the public service loan forgiveness program. But until he had consulted with us and connected, because he was so in a headspace about it, he was paying $5,000 a month.
Wow.
And one of the things he had said to our team members was that he said, I would love to, remarry, but who was going to take me with $1 million?
That's it
Well,
right
I didn't
there.
know Sheila then. I said, I'd send him over to Sheila. But so now he might be out in the world dating. We have to do a follow-up. I'll call you
There you
guys back
go.
next year. So
There you
this is really exciting for him, because what I was hearing him say was that he was just functioning through life, like probably in real-time depression in a sense about that number. But he also felt very proud that they were doctors and that his children didn't
Right.
have the debt.
Right.
But when you look at him on paper, you would almost say like that he failed. But he didn't fail. The system failed him and his children. So now he's a very happy man. I know he's happy because I was telling Laura he sent us an exuberant amount of money for lunch because we're very affordable. So I was like, what am I going to do with this? He was like, go eat some steak or something. I'm like, you don't got to tell me twice, John. So, but it's just an example of, no, we don't know who he would marry with $1 million if he's
Right.
being transparent. And I'll tell you something, and then we definitely take some questions.
Yeah.
Most people are not telling their spouse ahead of time what their debt is.
Correct.
True debt.
That's
You
correct.
don't find out until it's time to go get a mortgage. And no,
Yeah.
that's really
No,
what
it's
comes
true.
out. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
need to tell somebody about a car or credit card, but a mortgage, everything. Anybody ever go to get a mortgage before or pre-approval?
Mhm.
Everything is on the line.
Yeah.
And he probably knew ahead of time to not put someone in that situation, because that would be maybe an annulment. So we don't know.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah. So
Well-
I saw your hand raised.
Yeah.
And Sheila, did you want to add something?
No, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But now all of a sudden we got more than 90%. More than 90% of the population is online now,
They're staying.
and we've shrunk the number of locations that we have by over 50%. But I'm not going to say which university I work for, but I will say that as we went online, we also added a number of students in the classroom that each professor teaches.
Mm-hmm.
And and there's many of us can work from home now as well. So there's some positive things, and the technology is really good. I think the education is good. We do have live lessons, but I think that should be a way for the universities to cut costs, because it
Oh,
doesn't
agreed.
cost them as much money to have a student online as it does to have them on campus and using the facilities, and they can shrink down the size of the facilities. So I was wondering if Canada is going through some of the same issues. That's one question. And then I have two other quick ones. I was wondering about AI in Canada, how you guys are embracing that, because it was on hold for a long time, but now we want to put AI in everything. And then I forgot what my third question
Let's
was.
do the
But
first one.
Okay, we'll do the first two, and then we'll pop over here because I see a question there, and then we'll come back. So to your first question, I mean, we, like the rest of the world, we were quite responsive or reactive to the COVID-19 pandemic. At my institution, we instantly shut down. But I will say my portfolio, so again, skilled trades, kind of like a neurosurgeon that you don't want to learn from AI. Skilled trades, I don't think that you want somebody working on your car brakes that learned off of YouTube. So my portfolio, we were back up and running 3 weeks after the pandemic hit. The government put into place a lot of restrictions on us. So it was like mask wearing. I forget, we went from social distancing to physical distancing. We had to correct our terminology because we didn't want people to be socially distanced. We just wanted them to be physically distanced. But we do have a lot of areas at my institution that continue to run online programs and run them quite successfully. We're in the process of mothballing one of our campuses and areas. So I have 5 campuses in my institution. One of them is being mothballed. And then the other 4, mine runs actually growing capacity. I had about 1,600 students in my portfolio when the pandemic hit. Now I'm hitting about 2,200. So I'm actually growing, but other areas in the institution, because of that shift to online learning, they have continued to do online learning. Collective agreement restrictions, so all of our employees are unionized, and they have limits in the collective agreement for the number of students that can be in their classes. So even though it's online, we as administrators cannot add more students in. Fortunately, unfortunately, I think it would be good for the institution from a revenue. I'm sorry? Not necessarily. There are private institutions that are not necessarily unionized, but all of the public institutions are. Not the same unions. Mine's called the Kwantlen Faculty Association, and then we have the British Columbia General Employees Union, I think it is, for the staff. When it comes to AI, so talking about the bridge between online learning to AI, at my institution, we have a teaching and learning portfolio, phenomenal. It's led by a woman named Dr. Leanne Waddington. And what they're trying to do is find different ways to assess students so that artificial intelligence is not negatively impacting learning. As an example, if you're doing an online exam and it's a multiple choice, you can just go to AI, look up the answer on the side, get your answer, plug it in. You can even say, write me an essay that covers this topic and make it sound like a second-year student. And a professor, if you know how to use AI, as somebody that's right now about to defend her doctorate, if you know how to use AI, you can make it sound exactly like your voice. I know profs think that they can figure it out all the time. Hate to tell you. But I think a real responsibility for us as educators is recognizing AI is not going to go away. We need to embrace it. In conversation this morning, Sonia pulled up Alex, who's our AI friend, and asked some questions and got immediate answers. It's our responsibility as educators to adjust and recognize that the upcoming generation is using it without question.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we safely incorporate it to maintain the integrity of the work that we do that we're so proud of?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if anybody else wants to.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, and please don't say which university. Do you work for a for-profit or a not-for-profit? I knew you did. So my background is that I worked for a for-profit institution for many years before I created my own business, Student Loan Doctor, which actually drove me to creating this business because I was meeting students that are adult learners. So all of my education is around education, curriculum, and adult learning. And what I was studying is how does student loan debt affect African American women. But from an adult learning perspective, I was seeing people in real time having to answer the question of how they want to pay that debt when they left our institution. So I already knew when you asked your question, I was like, he works for a profit. Now, what I just want to say that I've seen on this end with repayment, a couple of things. There have been more borrowers' defense applications submitted to the Department of Education because of the pandemic shift. People started filing complaints with the Department of Education saying, I went to this institution, mostly for profit, that they failed to honor what they said I was going to get coming in because of the shift to online learning. So I just wanted to give you that perspective that there are tons of applications that probably will not get read thoroughly, and that we just saw as of 2 weeks ago, the DOE discharged over 100,000 people student loan debt because of their complaint. So if they went to, I don't want to say said school, well, I can say because it's public knowledge, like a DeVry or a Phoenix, if you put a complaint in at a certain time, your student loan could have got wiped clear because you could have made a good defense that your education wasn't what you initially signed up for. And there was a lot of this around the pandemic changes. So that's a perspective you didn't ask for, but there are students that are now saying that their education they believe was impacted, or their dean got let go, and that actually happened to me in the middle of my process. Like I was working so closely with one of my deans, and then I'm like, where is he? And they said, oh, he transitioned. No, you transitioned him. It was such a big thing. So we're seeing it impact our students and then staff. I thought you said something that was really, really interesting. And I didn't want you to go over it. I always had wondered, did the staff's salary increase with all of these changes to online? Or if it didn't increase, why did cost of education still go up? Because now we're not having to pay a light bill. So no, you're not in wrong thinking. I mean, we could talk all day about that conversation. But I think that is a bigger conversation to have, that we're still acting like these expenses are, and they're not. So where did this money go? And then why couldn't we give it either to staff or students? So I just wanted to chime in that I think that your brain is in the right direction. I don't know if we all have the answers here, but if you can call me when you get some.
So I'm going to.
Okay, well, I just want to talk about two things, get your opinions on two things that have happened in Texas over the last, I would say, 4 years. Every university was challenged to come up with a $10,000 four-year degree, and they have done that. And then what is your thought about that? It sounds good, right? But then my second question is, I think what part of the issue is, take the doctor, the neurosurgeon.
Mhm.
You know, everybody wants to be a doctor. And what you put in for the education, you need to know, will you really get that back out? And we need to know that for every position, right, or degree program that we're going to offer. Like if I had to do over again, I would be a HVAC because I would be a millionaires right now.
Would. You absolutely
But nobody told me that, and my mother was not educated, and she said, you need to go to college. And I go, yes, ma'am. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on a $10,000 degree? And, you know, my question is, well, will they get a job with that? Or what kind of job will they get? I can't answer that for you because they're all different, but anyway.
So thank you for the question. I am conscious of the lovely individual behind you that's telling us that we are out of time. It's amazing to me that the time passes so quickly. We are around, I believe, for the rest of the day, or at least for the morning. So if we want to have a conversation directly, I will quickly say I love the direction, the concept of a $10,000 degree. Unfortunately, it's not possible with collective agreements that I have at my institution. We would have to union bust, and that, unfortunately, is not a possibility. But if you, yeah, but if you ever want to look at HVAC, come talk to me because I can hook you up.
I was just end on saying that we have a saying around here that goes, borrowing determination should equal career compensation. And so we're asking our students and our parents that before you borrow, does this career equal out? Is it a good return on investment? So I love your question and statement. And I think if more parents and students led with that thought, then we would see wiser borrowers.
Sheila, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, if any of you guys have your kids wanting to get married, send them to Focus's way. We will help have the conversation between them and their future spouse before they get married, so that some of these items get disclosed before marriage.
So I see a final question, and unfortunately, we are being told that we have a hard stop right now. Unfortunately, I have to respect the panel that we have here and their time. But we are around to chat with you directly. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent job. Thank you so much, panelists, for that insightful session. Our next keynote focuses going to shift to something equally important, the idea that learning does not stop at the classroom door. In today's evolving world, growth happens through experiences, exploration, and opportunities that extend far beyond traditional settings. This session, the GROW time, Education Beyond the Classroom, will take a closer look at how we can create meaningful learning experiences that nurture curiosity, build real-world skills, and empower students to grow in every aspect of their lives. Leading this inspiring session is Felisa Bennett, the Organizational Culture and Curriculum Specialist at LBC Educational Consulting. She is an accomplished educational leader with over 20 years of experience in K-12 education, adult learning, and community development. Please help me welcome Felisa to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be in front of you all today and have the opportunity to share the work that I've literally been working on for the last 8 years of my teaching career. So this is really, really important to me. Grow Time was born because of a lot of different factors, believe it or not, prior to COVID. And it expanded throughout the years. I just want to tell you a couple of things about it. Hopefully you can. I want to take a moment to check in with you. This is one thing that I do with my students every morning as soon as they come into the classroom, because I need to be able to know what they're thinking, how they're feeling. All of those things are important when we're thinking about how we're going to help them get through the day. So,
Clicker right here. Advantage, just press this button.
okay, great. It's really important for me to understand my students because I work in an alternative education setting where I have students from a wide variety of backgrounds. They may have disciplinary issues, they may have mental and emotional health issues, they may be pregnant, they may even have some other issues going on. Some of my students are general ed, others have IEPs. Sometimes students may come to me because they've transferred in from another school district and they're trying to figure out where that student should be placed, what type of self-contained classroom they should be in. So I have students of all backgrounds in my classroom. So knowing how they're feeling as soon as they walk into the classroom is super important because that's going to set the tone for that particular student for the entire day. So I want to encourage you to take a moment, check in with me. How are you feeling this morning? I know it's still kind of early, but it's the last day of the conference. So how are you feeling right now? Start from that inner circle and work your way out. How's everybody feeling? You're feeling great? Awesome, awesome. For me, I am feeling a mixture of emotions right now. I'm feeling a little nervous, but extremely excited to be able to be in front of you here today. GROW is an acronym that stands for growth, resilience, optimism, and wealth. It's always been important to me to be able to instill these characteristics in my students, even when I was teaching high school English prior to becoming the lead in the alternative school program. So I've always looked at my students a little bit differently than most people. I cannot stand the term at risk. What are your students at risk of? At risk of not graduating, at risk of, dropping out? What are they at risk of? And when you label a student as being at risk, they internalize that. And when they internalize it, it's manifested through their actions in the classroom. You may see it manifested as poor grades or poor attendance, even poor behavior. So I always tell my kids that they are not at risk, they are at promise because they have yet to realize the promises for their future. So it's my job to be able to help them see what their futures can actually be. Common challenges that I face in this alternative school setting, and I'm sure many of you also have these challenges in your classroom. I always have had issues with students' behavior, their mindset, their attendance, and their poor grades. But there are solutions to those problems. You've got to give them rigor, relevance. You've got to give them a sense of community. And you have to teach them how to build and maintain relationships with others, even themselves. Growth time matters specifically because of this young man right here. This is Blake. Blake came into my classroom as a second-time ninth grader with only 2 credits towards graduation. He was already 16 years old, and he had a huge chip on his shoulder because of his home life. Both of his parents were on drugs, and it was up to him at 9 years old to be able to take care of his 4 younger siblings. He had to make sure that they had food in the house and that they were fed, that they had clothes to wear, and that they were clean, making sure that he got them off to school. So he never really had a good perspective on getting an education. And he always felt like he didn't belong at school, that he wouldn't do well in school because none of his family members graduated from high school. Not his mom, not his dad, not his grandparents, or aunts or uncles on either side of his family graduated from high school. But as you can see in this picture in the middle, Blake did graduate. I was so proud of him. He was able to graduate in 2 years. He graduated on time with his class, and he is now a Marine. I couldn't be more proud of this young man. Grow Time truly helped him grow. And this is why Grow Time works, because it provides students with multi-tiered systems of support. It helps them develop a growth mindset. I'm able to teach them life skills that they'll need in order to be able to succeed in the real world. Not only that, I help them be able to see what they want their lives to be like. So I give them that vision. I help them find their purpose. And I do that first through working on their mental and emotional well-being, helping them identify so many of those triggers because of adverse childhood experiences. And then the last thing I teach them to make sure that they can be successful in the real world is financial literacy. They don't get these topics taught to them in a traditional classroom setting. It just doesn't happen. I saw this problem back in 2019. In this alternative school program, we used to have a licensed professional counselor, and he decided to leave to pursue private practice full time. When he left, there was a huge void. Students were lost in their own ways. And it was up to me to figure out ways that I could help fill that void, solve those problems for these students. And one of the ways that I do this is through growth. There are 5 types: self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. Where I start off at first is self-awareness. They have to be able to recognize the things that are happening in their bodies, recognizing those thought patterns, because it makes a difference. And after they become self-aware, they can become socially aware as well and be able to develop those relationship skills. And through self-management, learning how to control those negative thoughts, those negative emotions, and those negative actions, they're able to make more responsible decisions. Next is resilience, and there are 7 components. Again, they have to have that meaning and purpose. If they don't have that, they're lost. They're just kind of floating around aimlessly in the world. So that's the first thing that I get them to think about. We create vision books, And I have them think about different elements of their lives. What do they want their lifestyle to be like? What kind of career do they want to have? What kind of house do they want to live in? What kind of car do they want to drive? What qualities they want to have in themselves when they get to be an adult. They have to also be able to face their fears. A lot of times when kids aren't doing well in the classroom, it's because they're scared. They don't want to answer a question for fear of being wrong. So when you're able to get them to open up and face those fears and see that they can pretty much do whatever they want, it really helps them become more resilient. They also have to have cognitive and emotional flexibility. I want them to be able to identify and understand all of their emotional and bodily reactions. We take time to just sit and meditate. Sometimes we even do yoga in class, and it's really funny to see some of the boys doing downward dog. they they're like, Miss Bennett, please don't make me do this. Please don't make me do this. And I'm like, chill out, dude. It's gonna work out. Just listen to the music, let your body flow, and it's going to be just fine. This is something that's really important in helping them build that resilience and becoming more in tune with their bodies and their thoughts and their emotions. And that leads to their brain and physical fitness. We always make sure that students are able to take that time outside or in the gym. My classroom is currently like a dungeon. There are no windows. It's 4 cinder block walls. We're in the back corner of the campus, away from everything and everybody. So it's really important that they have that opportunity to get physical activity. And me and my staff always strive to be good role models for them. And because we're able to be good role models, we're able to help support them in a variety of ways. The social support also comes from the other kids in class. We have morning meetings every morning, and we'll talk about a variety of topics. Sometimes I'll even pull content from Instagram for us to discuss. And when they're able to hear each other's thoughts, they're able to have deep discussions and be able to build more of a community in the classroom. And they are able to support each other when things aren't going so well. And lastly, spirituality. I know that we aren't supposed to talk about religion in class, but to me, religion is different from spirituality. We do engage in meditation. Sometimes some of the kids even talk about, their relationship with their higher power. It's not anything that I initiate, but those are things that they begin to talk about on their own because they feel so comfortable with each other, because they have built those relationships and built community. And next is optimism. When students begin to feel optimistic because they've already developed that growth mindset and they're already becoming more resilient, they feel a lot differently. Their mental health improves, their physical health improves. Of course, they have greater resilience. They have improved relationships, not just with their peers, not just with me and the staff in the program, but they also have better relationships with their parents, which they always come to me and they're like, Miss Bennett, oh my gosh, thank you so much. My kid has totally changed. This is amazing. Like, what did you do? Because I only have 45 days with these students. That's it. I've got 45 days to do as much as I can to help these kids transform their lives. That's it, 45 days. So we have to move on to the wealth component of Grow Time. And wealth is not just financial wealth. A lot of times the kids are just thinking, well, I just want to be rich. But rich how? It's not just about money. Sure, we all want that financial security and freedom to be able to do the things that we like to do. We want to have that time and that flexibility. But being wealthy also means that you have more access to different opportunities. It expands your mind to see the world on a much larger scale. It's not just about me, and being in my bubble. They're able to see a whole lot more. And when they do, they have greater peace of mind. They understand that because the world is so big, that they have the opportunity to make an impact on the world, to influence other people. They're able to aspire to be something greater. First thing I do when students walk into the class on day one is orientation. Because again, I only have 45 days. So I have to get to know my students as quickly and as deeply as possible. So during orientation, I give them a battery of assessments, including a love languages inventory. They have to set SMART goals for while they're in the program as well as beyond the program. We talk about their general intelligences because everybody is smart, they're just smart in different ways. So once I'm able to understand in what ways they are smart, I'm able to tap into that. And another thing I do is take a personality inventory. It really helps me understand exactly who it is that I'm dealing with in the classroom because they aren't just students, they're people too. And we have to consider that. Grow Time is a variety of things. It's not just talking about what life is going to be like once they graduate from high school. We work on healthy habit building, developing a growth mindset. I help them develop life skills. They learn how to do their taxes, create a budget. They learn how to buy their first car, their first house, read a lease agreement. There's so many different elements to this. I help them learn how to build and maintain relationships because as teenagers, their friend group can be pretty fluid. They also get the opportunity to do some college and career exploration because again, we want them to have purpose. And if they can see themselves going to college beyond high school, if they can see themselves in a certain career, that helps them develop that vision and purpose. We also do a lot of mindfulness. We work on gratitude journals. Every Thursday is Thankful Thursday, and they know that when they come into the classroom, they need to pull out their journals, choose from a list of prompts, and then write. Think about what it is that they're grateful for. Everything down to what are you most grateful for in nature? What are those things that you appreciate most in life? And the last thing that we do as a part of Grow Time and also part of orientation is life traps. I want you to take a second, scan this QR code. It links you to a life traps assessment. And in this assessment, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn how you feel because of those adverse childhood experiences that you had so long ago. Those things shape who we are as people. They manifest themselves in so many different ways in the classroom. When kids have a life trap of mistrust or abuse, they're not going to open up to their teachers quickly. That's just not going to happen because they don't feel internally that they'll ever be able to trust anybody. So those are the kids that come into your class, they sit in the back corner, and they say nothing. It's hard to be able to break the ice with those kids. Life traps are a dysfunctional pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving that persists into adulthood. It completely shapes our characteristics. When you finish this, I want you to think, what did you learn about yourself that you didn't realize before? And then I want you to think about how this information can be helpful to your students. Last part is financial literacy. I talked to them about budgeting and banking and credit and loans and insurance and taxes and investing. These are questions that students have because they don't know how to do any of this stuff. They have absolutely no clue whatsoever what they need to do to be productive adults. You know, in a traditional classroom setting, we're preparing them for academia, and that's it. They don't know what to do when they get out in the real world. So I have taken it upon myself to be able to teach them what it's going to be like when they become successful adults. They learn life skills, taxes, credit, lease agreements, buying a car, getting a job. We have interview days where I'll interview students and they'll interview each other so that they can get used to what it's going to be like when they have to interview for a job. Sometimes I'll even bring in other teachers to help interview so that we have a panel of people that they have to interview with. So many ways to measure success with growth time. You're able to see, especially at the high school level, a difference in the amount of credits a student can earn in 45 days. Last semester, I had a student who came into the program because he was behind in credits, and he was able to earn 8 credits towards graduation in one semester. Their attendance improves. They're able to get better grades. I always check what their GPA is before they come into the class, before I even have an intake meeting to bring them into class. And once they leave, generally, they're at least 2 levels higher. So if they come in with a D, they leave with a B. Their behavior improves, and that confidence from those outside sources, parents, administrators, other teachers, when they go back to their traditional classroom settings, they're all able to see a difference in what these kids are like, how they're thinking, what they're doing. Growth time is awesome because it helps kids develop that self-awareness. They learn how to build healthy relationships with others. They're able to explore colleges and careers. I even have virtual reality in my classroom so that the kids are able to learn different trades hands-on. They learn about welding and carpentry and nursing and veterinary technician. They learn all of those different things, and they have the opportunity to do it hands-on. And beyond that, they get a vision for their lives. They're able to see what's most important to them. Does anybody have any questions about growth time? How you can implement it in your classroom? Well, go ahead. We begin working with those students and their parents in the intake meetings before they come into the program. They are able to set goals for their students as well as the students set goals for themselves. I keep in constant contact with parents, letting them know what their progress is, giving them the opportunity to ask any questions that they might have. So we stay in constant contact with each other. Parents are also able to come into the classroom, see what the students are doing, and being able to add their own input into what they want their student to do. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about my work.
Thank you so much, Felisa, for sharing your valuable insights. Today, learners are growing up surrounded by content, creativity, and constant connectivity. So the question is, how can educators meet them where they are and turn those everyday influences into meaningful learning experiences? Our next session, Teaching Gen Alpha, Lessons from Instagram, YouTube, and Gaming. We'll explore how platforms and environments that students engage with daily can offer powerful insights into how they learn, interact, and stay motivated. Please help me welcome our speakers. We have DJ Fraiolia, the founder of Nutrition Connection at LLC, and Dr. Satyayana Rana, Dev, Associate Professor and Chair at Florida A&M University. Please welcome them.
How y'all doing today? Thanks for showing up. So today we're going to talk about Gen Alpha and bringing gamification to the classroom. So I want to start off with a little introduction about myself. So again, my name is DJ. I am a fitness and nutrition professional. And you might start to wonder, how does that tie into education? So I'm going to get there. Growing up, I was overweight. I used food as a coping mechanism to deal with problems at home. It led to depression, anxiety. It led to a decrease in my academic performance. And it wasn't until I was 22 that I decided to take control of my life. And I started to realize how nutrition played a real role in that. My academic performance increased. I started getting more confident. I'm on stage speaking amongst all of you now. And now it's led to me creating my company, Nutrition Connection, helping reach where students are at, which is through gamification. So Nutrition Connection is a digital platform bringing nutrition education to where Gen Alpha is through gamification and interactive learning.
Thank you. Well, I'm Satyanarayan Dev. I was here on a panel yesterday as well. So I kind of introduced myself as a boy with the toys who builds the toys he plays with. So, so gamification is part of the toys that I build and play. So, and that kind of being the department chair of biological systems engineering, that automatically ties into whatever I teach. But I just heard DJ say that he was overweight. I still am. So, so there is a lot of connection with nutrition, and we were actually talking about how this nutrition education aspect, the gamified nutrition education aspect of that, can not only help high school and lower end, but also go up to the university end and help students there as well. So I've been trained as a food processing engineer, but kind of evolved to become the boy with the toys today. So kind of have tentacles in different areas, coding, programming, gaming, all those stuff. So here to talk about how to teach Gen Alpha specifically. So
yeah, I think it's important, being that you have the background being a professor, where do you see gamification take off when it really connects with Gen Alpha?
well, first of all, we all need to take into account, gamification often comes off in the wrong note. People think that we are kind of dumbing it down. It's not so serious anymore. People just play, they don't learn. The whole concept is different. This is actually bringing experiential learning and putting it in the hands of the students, especially the Gen Alpha who like to be very competitive, who like to be winning all the time, who has the attention span of a hummingbird. So we want to make sure that we tailor to that generation and they still learn because the future depends on them.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think it touches on three things when gamification is working properly. It's agency, it's bringing them to have a sense of control. So they're choosing the different path within the game, but they're still taking on the content that we're presenting to them.
Absolutely.
And then also there's mastery, right? So with gamification, they're going back in trying to get the most amount of points, get to the highest point of the leaderboard. It brings into like how homework is. It's repetition. So it's repetition through gaming and where they are with how they interact with things. And then also Gen Alpha is really big on collaboration, teamwork with competitiveness. So when you bring gamification in, you hit on those three topics and then they start to learn, they start to absorb the material that much better.
Absolutely. Well, oftentimes what this really helps is like, for example, right now, the two of us are just sitting and talking. And I always take this example of this five blind men looking at an elephant. One touches the tail and says it's a rope. The other one touches the legs and it says it's a pillar. Nobody's actually seeing the elephant in the room because they're blind, right? But they only see what they feel, right? So that's what often happens in education when we don't bring that full picture. Like, let me take the example of where I have really successfully gamified and it has gone to the high school level from the university. I started it off at the university level, but now it's been used at the high school level to bring interest in forestry and forest management for students. So one of the things that we do in the forest is prescribed burn, which is controlled burning, to make sure there is no fuel in the forest for wildfires so that they don't go so intense and uncontrolled. So, but how to teach a student to do a controlled burn without burning themselves? And you get to burn yourself only once. But if you do it in a virtual environment, you can do it as many times as you want. So 3 strikes, you're out. There is a leaderboard, high score. There is a protocol to follow, all safety procedures and precautions in place. Are you doing that in place? And if you do everything right and the burn is successful, the game's over, you got the higher score. So, and we kind of do that in teams. So this team is responsible to compete with this team and they kind of fight it out and see who's the leaderboard. And of course, 3 strikes, you're out. So in real life, 1 strike, you're really out. So that's the biggest difference and the advantage that brings to the table. They can have experiential learning without the cost of it in the classroom. And what we do is we kind of project on the main screen what they are playing, what they are seeing in their virtual reality headset is projected on the screen so everybody sees what's going on as well. So the competition kind of gets intense, but they learn a lot at the end of the day. So in today's AI world where giving assignments, writing assignments has no meaning because they're not writing it anymore. They don't even know how to write anymore. So it's better to just, at my level at the university, I'm not there to teach them how to write. I'm there to give them the content and see how they can apply it in the real world. So that's my focus, and the gamification aspect of it really helps me do it.
I think it's really interesting too, right? Because you show how advanced it's gotten. But does anyone remember Oregon Trail when we were kids playing that in the classroom? So gamification has been around since then. That hour that I was in school playing Oregon Trail was one of the best times that I had in school. It was most time I felt I was really learning. I was interacting more with the environment that I was in. It's just now we're at a point where Gen Alpha learns in a way that curriculum is not there yet. So we have to meet them where they're at, and that's honestly the hallmark of proper and great education for the individual, in my opinion with it.
Absolutely. Well, as we are at it, does anyone in the room has experience either as a user or as a developer? Yes, please. We can hear
We
you
can
well.
hear you. You're good. Mhm. So I totally understand where you're coming from with it. And I don't think it's that really students don't know how to write, right? So think of AI as the tool. It's not the system that's going to take over everything. It is a tool for the educator. And it has been shown in numerous studies done by Stanford that gamification does improve academic performance only when the teacher is still involved, still mentoring, still leading the student. So it's not so much that we put this AI tool in place, they're going to gamify it, just play games and get academic performance increases. The teacher still needs to be involved. And what we're doing with gamification, at least with my app Nutrition Connection, is it's taking some burden off of the teacher, right? No more report generating. The app's going to do that for you. It's going to set up red flags for when there's performance drops, when there's engagement drops. And that's not to say that AI is the be all end all and you just get that red flag and you move forward. The relationship still needs to be there between the teacher and the student, because you may know that Steve's having something going on at home and AI is flagging it as him having poor performance or engagement, but you know that something else is happening. So it's more like, hey, this is going on with the student, but you have the information there. So again, I don't think it's that we're taking them and dumbing it down for them. I think there also needs to be design assessments. So it's not so much that they're going to use AI to cheat. So a student that properly understands the concept, they can orally speak about it. So oral examinations. Also, in a AI standpoint, you can have an assignment where it's like, here's the prompt, put it in AI, and then expand on it without AI intelligence. So it gets them to start the concept, start understanding. So really what I'm trying to say is we need to use AI as the tool. They still need human control. AI should never be integrated without human control, which is where Nutrition Connection comes into play, human vision, human strategy, AI deployment.
Yep. But just to address your point that are we kind of encouraging the bad attributes in students? Well, everyone in this room would agree a competitive spirit is not a bad attribute. But with that competitive spirit, are you trying to get ahead or are you trying to pull the person down? Right? So that is bad. If you're trying to pull who's ahead of you down so that you can stay ahead, that's a bad attribute. But trying to get ahead is all what we do every single day. That's what keeps the society growing. That is a very good thing, a competitive spirit, outdoing yourself. Compete with yourself, outdo yourself every single day. That's the way to grow. And that's the culture, and that's the attributes that we want to inculcate in our students. And that's what we promote every single day. Okay, yesterday you burnt yourself thrice. Try it again today, right? So until you actually get it right and complete a proper prescribed burn of the forest, right? You did it once, maybe just by fluke. So got to do it again, got to do it again. Build that mental muscle so that you can close your eyes and do it. I hope not, but I'm just saying to that level of comfort, you need to get to that level of comfort. And you can do that because even if you're trying to do the prescribed burn and practice it in the real world, you don't get that amount of practice in such a short time because there is only so much forest to burn. Right? But here you can do it over and over again. And some of the things, it's not one size fits all, right? So doing it in a longleaf pine forest is different from doing it in a deciduous forest or doing it in the northwest of the United States. So different forests pose different challenges. And how do you overcome? So that builds critical thinking. So yes, we kind of tell you the theory, but then when you are put in spot, not just applying the theory, but also applying your critical thinking to improvise on the spot. That's what we do in real world all the time. We got to improvise on the spot because things are never ideal. But the theoretical, mathematical calculations and stuff, it's all based on an ideal scenario, right? So let's say I'm talking about a heat exchanger design, and I'm like, we assume there is no heat loss to the surrounding. That's the worst, stupidest assumption you can ever have, because there's always heat loss to the surrounding, right? But you have to assume that to do that theoretical mathematical calculation. But then when you simulate, you can add all those complexities and say the real world, how it is different from your on-paper world that you do all your mathematical calculations. So there's a huge difference in the understanding and perception of things, especially in engineering, when they can actually do that experiential learning. And again, as an educator, it costs me way less. I don't have to have those heat exchangers in my lab. They're there virtually. I can build everything virtually, and they can do everything virtually. Yes, that synaptic feedback that you would get dealing with an actual heat exchanger may not be there. That's the only missing part. But I hope we'll get there soon. Make that virtual as well, getting that synaptic feedback that you would get when you're actually dealing with it. See, one thing we have proven to ourselves is that our world, or our perception of the world, is based on the 5 senses that we have. By manipulating, these are the 5 inputs, and here's a processor. So these are the 5 peripheral inputs that go into it. We process it, and we interpret it. Surprisingly, we all seem to interpret it more or less the same way, although we are individuals. So that's how we built the computers, based on how we do things: inputs, process, and output, right? So we have proven to ourselves, by manipulating at least 1 or 2 senses, which is the vision and hearing, we can actually take a person to a virtual world completely. And they perceive something completely different. So this actually opens up a world of possibilities to how we can kind of build things in without having to have them outside. So in other words, well, kind of a matrix concept we're looking at.
I think it's important to say too, right? So we speak about gamification, and you're bringing a real world example. It's not just so much we're playing games that don't have matter to it. It's, for mine, nutrition, they're gamifying it for interactive learning, but they are learning and building their nutrition plan throughout the whole concept of the game. So by the end of it, they have lifelong habits that they've just built, and it goes beyond the schoolwork, right? So nutrition's everywhere. After I finish school, I still need to eat right. I still need to be healthy. It affects how I am speaking, preparing for things. So I think it's really important to state that gamified, doesn't mean useless.
Yes.
You asked if anyone had experience developing gamified platforms or as a user, and I co-founded Experienceify, the world's first gamification-first learning management system. And I kind of wanted to address what the gentleman just asked about in terms of encouraging bad habits. So at the end of the day, as educators, I think we work in the context of what's happening in the world around us. And the truth is that kids are playing games, kids are being exposed to social media, kids are being pinged on devices right and left, and that's changed the way that their brains work. And we're not going backwards. And so I really see it as fighting fire with fire, because we can't change the context or the environment in which students are coming into school. So we have to kind of replicate them and leverage them to create the change that they want to even maintain interest. And if you look at the learning pyramid, for example, lecture and just reading have very low retention, 5 to 10%, versus demonstration or even teaching others. And so the reality that can be constructed using gamification techniques, leveraging the 5 senses, like I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, that he talked about. Actually, the brain doesn't know the difference between experiencing something firsthand and imagining that it's happening. So we're able to create these real-world contexts or simulations that allow people to actually experience and leverage skills, and also achieve states of flow where they're challenged to the point where they learn in new ways through engagement. When I was a girl in the 1980s, my dad had me learn typing on Mavis Beacon teaches typing. And this was a very early game, and he said he would pay me $1 for every word per minute that I learned how to type. And I type, and if you get a mistake, a little fly comes onto the dashboard, and then eventually you crash because you have too many mistakes. But I ended up typing 80 words per minute when I was 12 years old, and making $80 back in 88 or whenever that was. And it's been a skill that has kept with me for my entire life. And I'm a online entrepreneur, and I use my typing skills every day, and it's made me tens of millions of dollars. That one skill that I learned on a video game back in 1988. So I think that, as educators, we have to evolve with the times, and we can't go back to the Quaker schoolroom where we have the undivided attention of 10 people in the room and provide that kind of education. So it's not about turning things into games necessarily, but using mechanics that are based on psychology and the way that our brains work and the way that we naturally learn and grow and evolve, and every technique we have at our disposal to create student wins and outcomes.
Wonderful. Just to add to that, we are in Vegas. So some could argue that gambling is bad, and having a casino encourages gambling, right? But the point is, everything done under control to a limit is fun, right? And what we are adding to that fun is the learning aspect of it, is the critical thinking aspect of that. So we are adding those layers on top of having fun. So when you have fun, the retention of the information increases exponentially. And that's what we want to give them, because every time you win, every time you succeed, you get that dopamine shot. And Gen Alpha is all about the dopamine shots. Instant gratification, quick results, and seeing that they are successful gives that little dopamine shots over and over again, and they get to do it more and more. Yes, please.
So I'm a dean that oversees training of skilled trades workers at a Canadian Polytechnic University. And I wonder if you can address some of the structures surrounding, like, we know that, the next generation wants to learn through like AI and, virtual reality and augmented reality. I see it as a great learning resource, similar to you as an engineer. I don't want my students welding the building into destruction and destroying people's lives when they accidentally connect the brakes incorrectly. But I find that teachers want to teach how they were taught. So can you maybe from both perspectives address a little bit of like the surrounding structures to make sure that it's not just the students that are having a great learning experience or the clients that are having a great learning experience, but also, how do we upskill our educators so that it's not scary and it's not perpetuating the same systems that have been in place for many generations in this patriarchal, hierarchical educational system that we are part of?
For me, I think it's that teachers right now are overloaded, right? There's extreme administrative work that they need to do on top of how they're going to deliver it and engage with all the students, on top of keeping track of every student in class. How are we going to pace it so that they're all getting the education that they need through the specific topics? But with what AI would do for a teacher is it turns them into from the lecturer to the facilitator, right? Because the AI technology is tracking the student's progress. It can track everyone's progress, and that's just data now for the teacher to say, okay, this is where the design needs to change. So think of AI as the tool to deliver the content, whereas the teacher now can design and spend more time there. It also frees them up again from that admin stuff to spend more time on the students, which is where we want them to begin with. So in my opinion, the AI will help free them up to do what they went into teaching to do, to help the students, to mentor them, and to guide them.
And there is always this cultural connotation to that as well. But before I get there, your question about how to ensure in this patriarchal, hierarchical society, or the academia at least, to begin with. So, I was educated back in India, where teachers are like next to God. They are the ones who show your path to God. So in Sanskrit, it's Mata, Pita, Guru, Devam, which is God. So Mata is mom. So that's your first pathway to attain God. Next is your dad who guides you. And then it's the Guru. It's your teacher who shows you the right path. So, and the teacher sits, the students stand in the class, right? So you can imagine the difference, right? And having come to the West, yes, there was a bit of a cultural shock, not from the societal culture, but from the educational culture. So, and I was back in Canada and I started teaching in Canada. So I had to learn to teach in this context, which was completely different. So when you say that teachers or we like to teach the way we were taught, breaking that cycle is very important, because the classic definition of a lecture is that the professor's notes becomes students' notes without passing through the brains of either. Okay, so that's the classic definition of a lecture. So we don't want a lecture anymore. We have moved away from it, and we have seen that it's been more successful in terms of the student retention and their ability to learn when we use a combination of different techniques. So there's no single technique. So in other words, we don't want to say that gamification should replace any other form of teaching. It should complement all other forms of teaching that we have. So this is an added tool in our arsenal to help the students learn better, and this shouldn't be the only tool that they should learn from. Does that remotely answer your question?
Mm.
Yes.
Sure. So with my company, Nutrition Connection, it's not a one-time training. Here's your software and go. We are fully involved with them with 24/7 support that they contact. They get full onboarding training as well as onboarding onto the analytics so they know what they're looking at. It also comes into partnering with the school. So it's a partnership, not a one-time transaction of you're paying for my software and that's it. The school needs to be involved and have those trainings for the teachers and ongoing. So that's how I personally, with my company, address that question, because they need to have the training. They need to fully understand what the tool does and what they're teaching the students. They don't need to be the nutritionist, but they need to understand the concept of it.
And from a university context, we're talking about lecturers and professors. Yes, training is critical. We need to train them. But again, unfortunately, although it shouldn't be in place, what's in it for me is always the question they have. So incentivizing. So just as we're talking about the Gen Alpha wants to have these dopamine shots, so does the professors. So how are you going to give them their dopamine shots? It should be, some kind of a reward, some kind of an incentive, not necessarily financial, but financial is always good. But you can always have some kind of incentives that motivates them. So what gets them to do it, right? So as long as that incentive is put in place, they are motivated to learn how to do it. So because they're old enough, not so interested in the games anymore. They don't want to play the game themselves. Fine, what would get them interested in it? What kind of, for example, receiving the award yesterday was a dopamine shot for me, right? Sitting here, having the opportunity to talk to you all is a dopamine shot for me. So these are incentives, these are rewards that I am seeing for the hard work that I put in to teach my students in an innovative way, right? So that's what we need. We need to be able to show them what kind of dopamine shots that they can get and capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think that's important because the incentive for the teacher is, I think you got into teaching to see academic performance increase, students to be in attendance, less dropout rates. Interactive learning does all that. Personalized learning does all that. Again, the teacher needs to be involved, but I think what they'll see is when they incorporate this, kids aren't falling asleep in class. They're more engaged. They're ready to learn. And I feel like that's the dopamine that they'll like. They'll get to do what they wanted to do. They wanted to teach. They wanted to mentor instead of just calling out a student for sleeping in class or for not paying attention, not handing in their homework assignment.
You're welcome. But again, there's no one-size-fits-all answer to that question. You have to kind of understand your demographics and what motivates them and keep doing that. And then when the demographics change, you got to change that. So that's exactly what we're doing with our students. What worked for Gen Z not necessarily works so well for Gen Alpha. That's why we're looking at exploring other ways of making it work for the next generation. So
Leading into that, where would you say the differences between Gen Alpha to Gen Z and millennials?
Well, I have a T-shirt that I often put on that has a floppy disk, a video cassette, and an audio cassette. And it says, I am this old. Okay? The point I'm trying to make is that I have had the privilege and the opportunity to live through this rapid transition of technology, going from those floppy disks and cassettes to virtual reality and all that we're doing, cloud-based computing and doing everything. But unfortunately, they don't have that. So expecting them to kind of make that connection to that depth is not fair, right? So this is what they have seen. This is what they have grown up with. So how to connect to them at that level rather than trying to bring them down to the beginnings of that. So, but one thing that does not change, as I just talked to you all about, is how we take the inputs, process input, outputs. That hasn't changed, for a millennia or two, right? So taking that, things that don't change, and connecting it to things that always change makes people make that connection themselves, right? So, so I'm starting with the fact that that connects all the generations. Mm-hmm. But then the difference comes in, as we just talked about, is the attention span becomes shorter and shorter the more they're exposed to technology, the more they're into screens, the more they watch TikTok. So the point is, the key aspect of TikTok is that keep it short and sweet, right? Everything has to be short. So YouTube, yes, you have the long videos and short tech shorts. And if you look at the number of views, the shorts get millions of more views than the long videos. Although the long videos explain the concept and, in such detail, people don't have that attention span, time, and the patience to go through it. But shorts are quick, and it actually sticks. So if you can deliver a content in that time, then you can get that concept into their head. So chunking is very important. It wasn't that important. It became important during the Gen Z, but it kind of became critical now with the Gen Alpha. Whatever you want to present to them, chunk it. And then kind of build it all up to show the big picture. So it's like Lego blocks. So yes, there is a big picture. So show them this is how it's going to look like, but let's get into the build blocks of it. And then show them how to put it together so that they can also see the big picture as you are able to see from the beginning. So that kind of chunking and putting together concept always works in helping the students learning, at least from an engineering perspective. So I can vouch for that, and that is a major difference between the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, is that if you don't chunk, nothing gets there. You can go on and on and on about different concepts. At the end of the day, they didn't get anything.
I think what you addressed too is like you're meeting them where they're at.
Exactly.
It's where they learn the best. I'm a strength and conditioning coach at my old high school. And with the kids, for me, when I was told to go run, I would go run for the sport. And one day I was taking them outside and they had their phones out. And I go, what are you doing? We're running. They're like, we're playing Pokemon Go. It'll make us run faster and longer. It is in that moment that Nutrition Connection had the idea to gamify it in a way that it meets them where they're at. So I think that's really important. You understood that chunking is the way that they learn, and you bring that into your education portion of it.
Exactly. And that, not only has worked in retention, it also has worked in their applications. So when I challenge them with real world applications, they do better. Definitely not the best. They could do better than that, but definitely better than just presenting the whole concept to them in one whole lecture. And also what I started doing that I just started this fall is that I put 5-minute videos, no lectures. And it's a flipped classroom, so they have to watch these 5 or 6 videos before coming to the class, because those are the builder blocks I gave them that they're going to connect and build a big picture in the class as a team.
Right.
So that, again, encourages collaboration, that encourages their screen time, which a lot of us would disagree, but that's what they like, right? So they get to see, but they get that little concepts. And here's the connection between these videos, and this is how you can get the big picture out of it. And that's what I am there to guide them while they are trying to figure out how to put those builder blocks together. My job there is just to be there as a mentor to kind of, and they're diverging from where they're supposed to, just knock them back into the track so that they do it. And when they do it, they feel that they own it. They not only got the concepts, but they get that dopamine shot. Hey, I figured it out. And that's the dopamine shot that I want to give them, because when they figure it out, it stays. So, when I was doing my undergrad, I was doing my I was actually started as a computer science and engineering undergraduate student. But then one day I thought, okay, if I'm hungry, do I need computer chips? Potato chips. So obviously potato chips. So I went to food process engineering. That's something that's more fundamental to the survival of human beings. But I didn't give up my passion for computers. So I did have a computer sales and service while I was doing my undergrad, all that while. And right after finishing my undergrad, my first job was with Dell Computers. And everybody was, what does a food processing engineer know, and what is he doing in Dell Computers? The point is, all of them who were hired with me, they hired 100 people together. It was a cluster hire. So there were 100 computer hardware technicians who were hired at Dell, and I was one of them. Everyone else was either an electronics and communication engineer or a computer science and engineer. So they were like, and we had this written test as part of the 5-level interview. And I was the topper in the technical exam because all of them knew what to do. I knew what not to do because I've done it. My first output from the computer that I built, can anyone guess what it was? Smoke. So I learned by mistakes. So I learned it in a way that most other people don't get to learn how to build a computer. And that stuck with me.
Maybe some
Sorry?
were cool.
Is that an interference somewhere? Okay. Anyways, so and that's what I want to bring to my students, that experiential learning. Because if you experience, you will not only know what to do, you'll also know what not to do. Going back to the forest fire, you will know what will get you burnt, right? So, and it's unfortunate that you cannot try it in the real world. So this is the best place to try where you're protected. So
I can relate to that too, because honestly, it's lived experience, right? I told you I was overweight. I had to lose over 95 pounds and everything. And I understood firsthand after that point what nutrition did, not just physically for me, but mentally, and why that needs to be in the school systems. Nutrition education is not in many schools. And that's the fact. And to get them to learn, it needs to be interactive to meet Gen Alpha where they are at. So it's through my mistakes, through my challenges that I understood this is the education I needed when I was a kid, so I'm putting it into this environment.
yeah, and while we were outside, I was giving him an example of an instructor who just left my institution. She's a nutritionist. She still is, but not at my institution anymore. And what she used to do to connect to the Gen Zs, she raps. So she gets the concept of nutrition through rap with them in the class, and that stuck with them. That may not be so successful with Gen Alpha today because we need a different strategy. So the content has not changed much. It's just the delivery part of it, how we get to them. And meeting them where they are helps us deliver the content. And if that is our job, let's better do it well. So,
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for your time.
yep. Thank you.
Thank you for our speakers for that last engaging session. Building on that idea of expanding perspectives, our next session, integrating indigenous healing practices into modern education systems, will explore how traditional knowledge and cultural wisdom can enrich contemporary learning environments. From community-based learning to holistic approaches that nurture both mind and well-being, these practices offer valuable insights into creating more inclusive, balanced, and meaningful education experiences. This discussion will highlight how blending time-honored traditions with modern methods can open new pathways for student growth and understanding. Joining us for this important conversation, we have our moderator, Robert Vetter, the CEO and founder of Robert Vetter Enterprises, LLC, and our panelist, DJ Frioli, the founder of Nutrition Connection, LLC, Satya Brat Jaswal, the president of Academy of Sound Healing, who will share their knowledge, experience, and perspectives on bridging these worlds in impactful ways. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Can you tell I work with elementary school kids? Anyway, so good morning and welcome to Integrating Indigenous Healing Practices into Modern Education Systems. In cultures all around the world, education has never been just about presenting information. Education is actually about relationship. The relationship that I have with myself, the relationship I have with others, the relationship I have with the natural world, and the relationship that I have with meaning. So education is much broader than perhaps the indoctrination or the passing on of information. My own work comes out of a background in cultural anthropology, looking at the world holistically and cross-culturally. And I've always been involved in the intersection of education or traditional knowledge and healing. So we'll explore exactly what that means. I've been lucky enough to take this traditional knowledge and work with educators and in institutions to try to present something that I think is universal wisdom that we can all draw from. So when we talk about the term healing, we're not just talking about fixing something that's broken. We're talking about coming into more conscious contact with aspects of ourselves. Healing and education are not, in fact, two separate subjects. What healing does for us is it creates the proper environment for learning to take place. Because we all know what happens when we don't have the right environment, when a student is not coming into the educational facility in a way that they are able to learn. So we're going to look at what wellness means, what healing means within this context to create the proper environment for learning to take place. And I'm going to give our presenters each a chance to tell a little bit about themselves. We have DJ Frioli, we have Satya Jaiswal, and we have Christopher Stock, who is not with us in person, but we're going to be looking at a video that he left for us to watch today. So I want to begin with my two presenters here and give each one of them a chance to do their own introduction. So we'll start with you, Satya.
Okay. Good morning and namaste, everyone. My name is Satya Brat Jaiswal. I am from India, and I work with sound and meditation to help children to focus better, to have better concentration, to have better creativity, and have a better, how to become a better human being. So, in ancient times, in our cultures, meditation was given lots of importance. Even they mentioned that at the age of 5, one can begin meditation. Why? Because When we learn meditation, we learn how to relax, how to overcome, the challenges in our life by become mentally better. For our mental health, for our emotional health, for our spiritual health, meditation is one of the best thing. And if we are apart from, in our modern education system, there is lots of importance given to physical fitness. But apart from physical fitness, mental fitness is equally important. And meditation is the key. So here, for in our modern lifestyle, for many people, even for kids, it's or school-going children, it's very difficult to meditate themselves. So here we bring sound healing. How the healing vibrations, healing sounds can bring them into a very deep meditative state, relaxed state in an effortless manner. And if they are practicing it, regularly, it's very easy for them to even meditate by going to meditative state themselves. They can focus better, they can concentrate better, and they can even overcome challenging situations. So that's what we are doing, and maybe we'll talk more about it later on. Thank you.
Sounds good. DJ.
So I'm DJ. I'm sure all of you were just here with me on stage talking about gamification and nutrition. I'm going to dive a little bit more deeper into the nutrition aspect away from the gamification portion of it. I firmly believe that nutrition will help, and studies have shown that with academic performance, decreasing anxiety, decreasing depression. That's why I also built into my app mindset, mental health, deals with breath work to help lower anxiety rates within the students and everything. Also, nutrition in general is just, think of it as a general foundation building block. And it doesn't matter what your culture is, what food you eat, we still have to understand nutrition, how proteins affect us, carbs, fats, how it affects you mentally, physically. So my app teaches nutrition in a way that it doesn't matter what your background is, what your culture is, you still need to understand this. It's like if you think about music or dance, right? It is universally known, music and dance, but there are different genres, there are different dancing techniques. So it's the same with nutrition. We need to understand this core concept. So I know we'll dive into that a little bit deeper, but that is what I bring with Nutrition Connection.
Very good. Our third presenter is not here in person. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it here from Canada across the border, but he did leave us a video, and I want to just introduce him to give you an idea of what you're going to be hearing about. Christopher Stock is a member of the Mohawk Nation and lives in Oka, Ontario, Canada. He's a cancer survivor of aggressive stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He's been in remission for 7 years. Christopher's interactive Indigenous cultural experiences offer an introduction to North America's Indigenous people and their culture, creating a welcoming, inviting, engaging, positive experience and an opportunity to build a bridge toward active and sustaining truth and reconciliation. I was lucky enough to spend a little bit of time with all three of our presenters and get a little bit of their background and get to know them and what they're bringing to the stage today. We're talking about holistic education, education that is geared toward everything that we are as human beings, which we sometimes talk about as the body, mind, and the spirit. And to me, what is really fascinating is that in my conversation with the three of them, I realized that each one of them represents one of those. In fact, they all represent all three, but I would say that one dominates in each of our three presenters. So for DJ, I think we're going to be talking about the body. With Satya, I think we'll be talking about the mind. And when we get to Christopher, he'll be talking about the deeper connection with spirit. It actually overlaps with our relationship with the natural world, but it concerns the spirit. So each of our presenters is going to have their own angle, and I think together it'll give us this holistic sense of how education can address these three aspects of ourselves. So I want to begin with a question for our presenters. From your experience, when have you seen learning become genuinely transformative, not just informational? And what is it that made that possible? So you're closest to me, Satya. Let's start with you.
So, you know, we use an instrument called singing bowls. And the singing bowls, actually, there is in our tradition and culture for a long, long time. Recently, in last, 2, 3 decades, is becoming more popular worldwide because of the experiences what everybody, whoever experienced, and what's the change they see in their lives. So basically, this instrument can bring people to a very, very deep meditative state and relaxed state. And when working on kids, especially because nowadays we see lots of, problems in school going kids and children. And what we see, if we bring it into practice with them, it can really bring a big transformation into their lives, because they can learn how to relax and overcome, exam stress, anxiety. And there are lots of negativity school going kids are receiving these days. And seeing the experiences, how it can bring more joy into their life, more peace into their life, and how it can be clinically and scientifically actually applied on them. So that's what, really encouraging us to work more on them.
Can you give us a particular example?
Okay, so like nowadays, what you see, lots of children like suffering from ADHD. So there is no proper treatment plan for them, even in Western medicine system. And we have seen several parents who came to us and learned this, way of applying sound healing on their kids. And I just give few examples that one of parents who are like in big, in Navy, they are officers, and what they found that their child daughter was actually suffering from ADHD. They came to one introductory session and they got so confident, maybe we can learn and apply it on their daughter. Now what they mentioned that in recently, 12th grade exam, their child got like 92% marks who had ADHD issue. And now she got so encouraged that she is bringing this to her community and helping lots of children there. Another example, one gynecologist doctor came to us and she experienced it, and what she felt that maybe she can help their daughter also. And now she mentioned me that after applying it maybe more than a year, now her daughter is doing much better in her studies. And now actually that gynecologist has opened one sound healing clinic to help her patient. And she told that her daughter is also now joined and helping her. So we see lots of kids, who have some several, severe kind of these kind of issues. It's a completely life transforming for them. Apart from that, in schools nowadays, lots of schools, actually taking interest because they see lots of negativity in kids and lots of suicidal cases actually happening. So they want to, apply this, and they are getting actually much better result.
So we're talking so far about the very pragmatic aspect of meditation and of the use of the singing bowls. Could you give us a little bit of cultural context to understand where this comes from?
Okay, so actually, in Indian tradition, long back, sound was being used in different many ways, like mantra chanting. So even mantras have lots of healing powers. What are mantras? It's a very powerful, rhythmic, harmonious vibration. Like music. So maybe you have heard about music therapy. It's also getting popular worldwide. And it helps us in different ways, like, for our, maybe it makes us mentally better, emotionally better, spiritually better. And even lots of, you see spiritual people in ancient times used music to grow spiritually. So what is music? Music is again a very rhythmic, harmonious vibration. When we receive a rhythmic, harmonious vibration, it brings harmony within us. What are mantras? Mantras are a very powerful, rhythmic, harmonious vibration. Lots of research happening in modern world, and it helps us, with critical health issues also. So it was there in our culture long time. Now these instruments actually, what we call singing bowls, is actually a bowl-shaped bell. There are gong bells, maybe you have seen in ancient tradition, especially in Buddhist monastery. It's also a kind of plate-shaped bell. So the bells are there, we find in several cultures around the world for a long time, even at the places of worship. Like if you see Indian temples, there are millions of temples in India, and everywhere you find a bell. There are millions of churches around the world, and in each church you find a bell. There are maybe thousands of Buddhist monasteries around the world. In each monastery you find a bell. Ancient Jewish temples, you find a bell. If you go to Chinese culture, if you go to Japanese culture, if you go to several other cultures in Asia, everywhere at the place of worship you find a bell. It's just a coincidence. There must be some reason, there must be some logic, and actually the logic is, the reason is the bells, the vibration of bells. It's a very powerful, very sacred, divine vibration. It brings divinity within us. That's why, why you go to temple, why you go to church, to become actually a better human being. So when you receive this very powerful healing vibration, it brings a kind of divinity within you. And this vibration, eliminate any kind of toxic energies in the space actually. So that's why they related the bells with the god. And if you go to any Indian temple, first thing what you do when you enter inside a temple, you offer the sound of the bells to the god. This is the first thing you do. There is a reason actually again why those, so people try to think why you are doing this ritual there. Again, the reason is what they try to mention, what they kind of message they want to give to people. Your God loves this sound, and that's why whatever you offer to someone, you always offer what they like, what they love. It's not you offer anything to people. So your God loves this sound, and what is good for God is good for you also. But unfortunately, in several cultures, gradually people forgot this science, and nowadays actually you don't find real bells in the temple, because they thought bells are there just to create some sound, that's it. But you don't find the real bells. So gradually, they started using inferior metals, cheaper metals, because they forgot this science. Like food, if you don't understand the science of food, you eat anything. Right? But if you understand the science of food, you choose the right food that is good for you. Because of eating lots of toxic food, because of not having understanding about food, people are eating anything, and that's creating lots of complications. So similarly, when people forgot the science of this sound healing, the science of bells, they started, using anything. But now again, this science is coming back because, again, Tibetan people, they were still using it. All over world, people forgot it, but you know why? Because in Tibet, foreigners' entry was banned till 1950s for thousands of years, because they realized foreigners are coming. Like in India, they came 1,000 years, they destroyed their culture. So they stopped. But what happened? So that science was still being practiced there. In 1950s, Chinese people invaded Tibet, and they started going out. So they came to India, they came to Europe, and you know what happened? Somebody maybe gave shelter to them and they had some problem. Oh, I can heal you with sound. So when people experienced it, they were amazed. Like even I tell you, if you come to me, I give you even 10-minute session, you won't realize where are you in this world. You go so deep in such a deep meditative state. And meditation is one of the best medication, I tell you. It heals you at every level, cellular, mental, emotional, spiritual. So when people were so amazed when they started experiencing, and that, brought more curiosity, they started doing research, and in last 3-4 decades, more research happening, and now it's becoming popular all over the world. I see big corporates company now inviting for sound meditation sessions, sound wellness session for stress management of their employees, because what they see, if their stress level is managed well, they can perform better. Lots of school children now in different schools now, they want this kind of meditation and session, because they realize mental fitness is very important for the kids. Even scientists, and like recently we have one of the biggest scientific community, ISRO in India, they have invited for their scientists to experience it. So it's really a very good thing for all age groups, and especially for kids, it's very, very important in modern times.
Very good. DJ, let's go on to you to talk about the transformation that you see through the work that you do.
Yeah. So it really started for me outside of the school systems. I found myself, again, using food as a coping mechanism to deal with stuff that was going on at home. And before I knew it, I was going off to college really overweight. I mixed that with drinking, and I found myself at 250 pounds, depressed, anxiety, getting straight C's in college. Again, would never find myself even possibly thinking about being on a stage speaking to people. And it was when I found nutrition and losing the weight that I saw not just the physical and the body transformation of it, but the mental. All of a sudden, I was retaining information more. I was confident. I was speaking better. I wanted to engage more with my environment. So it's from there that I got into personal training. I got into nutrition coaching, and I found myself over the last 4 years back at my old high school teaching kids, seeing how much nutrition was not involved in the school systems, and seeing how much anxiety has even grown in the Gen Alpha generation. They are extremely high anxiety prone. And that is where I had the idea, we need to bring nutrition education into the school systems. And with my company, we gamify it to make it interactive and meet Gen Alpha where they are. So it's through my personal experience, my personal failures, that I came to this.
Could you give a concrete example of somebody who might have used that app, the game that you're describing?
Sure, yeah. So my students, I work with them on nutrition, hand in hand, teaching them it. And I found every time they graduate, it's like it didn't stick in the classroom or in the weight room with them. It was after they graduated, they would reach back out to me and they'd be like, I'm so glad I finally listened to you with everything you were teaching me with nutrition, with everything that now my kids that I'm teaching now are in my beta group with the launch of my app, understanding that nutrition needs to be learned both at the young age and it carries till when you're an adult. This is not something that you just stop after high school, stop after college. It is lifelong healthy habits.
Great, thank you. We're going to go on in a moment to see the video that was sent to us by Christopher Stock. Before we do, I just wanted to provide you with a little bit of context. So Chris is a member of the Mohawk Nation, and the Mohawk are one of 6 nations that make up the group, the confederacy that many of you may know of as the Iroquois or Iroquois. They're also known as the Haudenosaunee, and there are 6 nations, the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora, who live scattered across upstate New York and into Canada. One of their traditional beliefs is that every group of human beings was given original instructions at the beginning of time. And for most groups, they have lost those instructions, which is why we feel lost in the world. But there are three that went into these original instructions that they lost at one time and then reclaimed them. Number one, always be thankful. So it's a practice of gratitude. The second is to always treat others with kindness and respect. And the third is to adhere to the clan system, a matrilineal clan system that keeps people in communities that are based on love and reciprocity. In the video clip that you're going to see with Chris, he's going to be using something they call the Ohandagali Wadegwan, which is that which comes, the words that come before all else. And this is a practice of gratitude that begins all encounters. So if this were a traditional Haudenosaunee gathering, somebody would have done this Thanksgiving address before we did anything else. And it can be relatively short, as Chris is going to do in the video clip. It could be really long. It could extend out for 2 or 3 hours to express the gratitude and the relationship and the connection that we have with everything around us. So with that, I will ask our tech gurus over there to cue the video.
Sewa kwego. Te hona danha yumjats tana wata nito wagan wagatso nuni jiwa gunterhane. My name is Te Hona Danha. I'm also known as Elder Christopher Stogg from Wata Mohawk Territory, located in Muskoka, Ontario, Canada. I am a stage 4 aggressive cancer survivor. I'm now 7 years old. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to travel at this time and be in person at the conference, but I have made this video so that you can hear my words and how I integrated indigenous healing practices into modern day education systems. I want to thank you for this great honor of recognition amongst all of the education peers that are present. These words that come before anything else, these are the original instructions given to all human beings at the time of creation. Ohando gariwadekmo. Sewata siost, katne gariwesa ungweso, ne gadita sitwainumardado ne songwaya disa. Ne wahia goego rosa año, tino hoda de otawanye, ne ti yuantade. Da sitwainumardado ne songwaya disa, ti rowea nadao, ne ti yuantade. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, da sitwainumardado ne songwaya disa, ti rotkawa ne ganaron quatera. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, rawero, cha te waniserage, da ye de wata de numeratum. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, rawero, te ti numeradon ti nyago ungweye nagare, ne ti oantade. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, rone caronio, ti oantade. Ne gadi de ti numerado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, katsun sakotoro ne avanke, ne gadi de ti numerado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, rotkawa ne onunkwa ayungwayakta genha, ne gadi de ti numerado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, nyate kunti otinuma sakotoron ti uantade, ne gadi de ti numerado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, rotkawa ne ohunte suma, ne pundirio audikwa, ne gadi de ti numerado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, nyate katitake, rotkawa ti uantade, ne gadi de ti numerado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa ni gorda. Onagadi ne oya ne wahi, sagorihunde, ne gahniuhundesa, ne no ne agunti hante, ne aguegun kahisuna. Negadi de tinumorado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, totkawan gahi soa, tiuantade. Negadi de tinumorado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, sagari humte, ne aso negote noso, ne azai soa. Negadi ne unaste, osaheta, dano ne unu umsera. Negadi de tinumorado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, te sungwat gawa ne kakwa, ne jon hakwa, ne gadi de tinumardado, toka di nayoto, nungwat ne gora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, totgawa ne ogwere sua, ne gadi de tinumardado, toka di nayoto, nungwat ne gora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, yate kunti ochita, sakotaro, zi, yoentate, ne gadi de tinumardado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, nyate kunti kundirio, sakotoro, zi, yuantate, ne gadi de tinumardado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, sakori hunde, ne radiwera rasta, kairi, ne unkwa lare, zini tori ondakwa, ne gadi de tinumardado. Toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, sagari hunde, ne radigonorista, ne gadi de tinumardado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, sagari hunde, ne radiveras, ka nata kotaro, on yeti wanarunke, ne gadi de tinumardado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, sagari hunde, ne yeti sota ason tanka karakwa, Dayago swatedo, tini wasuntes. Negadi de tinumardado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, rori hunde, ne sungwa zia, jokaneka karakwa, de ho swatedo. Negadi da sitawe numardado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi ne oya, ne wahi, sagari hunde, ne ojistuk wasuma, da ho di swatedo, tini wasuntes. Negadi de tinumardado, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, unagadi a guego, a unte de wa yonto, a unte de wa roroge, ne nungwa negora, dano da sitawe numardado ne sungwaya disa, tinahoda sungwasa ani, tiyuantade, toka di nayoto, nungwa negora. Hang, doga o teno, dagadari hok takwe, I se gadinone e se waya datsu, on di se wat da sumtero, on di se wat gawe, ne gat numara dumsera, toka di num dagadari wat gweni, tonyuanage. Now, of these words, Wahando Gardi Wadakwa, as a healing practice, these words do provide healing because it always talks about how we offer greetings of love, honor, respect, thanks, and gratitude to our Creator for everything that He has placed on this earth. This is what I use as my teaching tool. These are the original instructions given to all human beings at the time of our creation, when we were placed on this earth. And it's also part of reclaiming our identity as Ongwe people, because our language is based on what we would observe in nature. And that's what these words are all about. Whenever I do these teachings, whether it's JK or all the way up to university level, we always start out with these words first. And I get them to listen to the language as it's being spoken. And then we discuss what that really means. And then and I ask the question, why is the water so important that we want to say thank you directly to it? And it gives them a different way of viewing the world around us, and it helps to reconnect us back to nature, that relationship that we had, that reciprocal relationship, and that honor, that respect, that thanks, and the gratitude, and the love that we share, because everything was placed on this earth for us as a gift, And all he asks us to do is say these words each and every day. And that's part of the healing process, is the reclamation. During my cancer treatment, these teachings helped me get through my journey, helped me to stay grounded. It helped me to look at what's most important in life. And that's what I share with every person that I come in contact with, every school, classroom I go to, and every organization that I may speak to. This is my teaching tool. My name is Tehona Danha, and I am A Journey Begins. Zijodasamant Watandi, the place where you begin to walk. Nyawagoa Timigwich. Thank you very much. I am so honored and grateful for the recognition at the amongst all my other educator peers. Nyawagoa.
So in all three presentations that we've heard so far today, we've really talked about a response to the alienation that people feel in the modern world. Whether we're talking about a teacher who feels alienated in his or her life, or a student who is disconnected. By restoring connection, we create the proper environment for learning to take place. So I want to pause. We can go on with more questions for our two presenters who are here, but I want to pause for a moment and just see if there are questions from the audience. Nobody? Okay. All right, so let's go on to a second question. How would you say that the work that you do responds to what's wrong within systems that are currently in place? In other words, what is there within the current educational system itself that your work responds to?
Actually, in modern education system, it's just to kind of create a skill and how someone can make good money. It's more focused on making money rather than how they can become, you know, uh, you know, it's kind of not just focusing on money, also create a value for the society and value for themselves, being, leading a more peaceful and joyful life apart from just making a money. So this is very important if somebody, wants to lead a real life where, of course, money is important, but they have a good, you know, uh, emotionally they are better. So they're like many people nowadays lack good relationships. They are making good money, but they don't have good relationship. The reason is if you are emotionally weak, you are emotionally not well nourished, emotionally unhealthy, you cannot have good relationship. So there are lots of, relationship issues these days among children and parents, among, husband and wives, among family members. So if you are emotionally weak, you always get hurt. If you are emotionally strong, so even somebody is trying to hurt you, you can smile and you can change that person. If you are mentally strong, you can overcome challenging situations in your life very easily. If you are mentally weak, it's very easy for you to suicide. No, I cannot overcome this situation. And nowadays it's happening. I see in India, even in several other places, like students have lots of nowadays, exam stress, pressure, and they cannot handle it, they go for suicide. So it's very important to take care of their mental health, emotional health, even spiritual health. The spiritual health, if you are spiritually strong, you love to share positive things to the world. If you are spiritually weak, everything for me. And that's where, all corruption starts. If you see that everything is for me, then you don't care about others. So it's very important. And when you care about others, when you share peace with others, when you share joy with others, then you have real joy. If you want joy into your life, first you need to share it with others. If you want peace into your life, first you need to learn sharing peace with others. So it's very important, apart from teaching skills to kids so that they can make maybe good money. And what we think, if we have money, we have everything in our life. But what happens at one point of time, everybody realizes, I have money, but I lost everything in my life. Maybe health, maybe relationship, maybe peace. I have money, but I lost all these things in my life. So from, very basic level, when kids are, going to school, they are getting education, they also need to learn that my emotional health, my mental health, my spiritual health is equally important. And that's where I think meditation and this sound healing, that sound healing is a kind of nourishment to their mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So, yes, that's why I think it's important.
And let's go on to another type of nutrition then, and I'll ask you to weigh in, DJ, about about systems
Yeah.
in place and how we respond.
So personally, I think the system right now, education has become a transaction amongst our institutions, and that's because our teachers, they're bogged down with all the admin type roles, all the report generation, all the student making sure that pacing is done properly and everything, and they're coming up with the content delivery as well as the creation. Right? On top of that, nutrition education is lacking in almost every single school amongst North America. So with AI technology bringing modern education into play, that takes away from the teachers needing to do all those tasks. It provides them with AI the training that they need with the new softwares. And bringing nutrition education into our school systems, you're teaching the kids about proper fueling so they show up to class fully engaged, fully ready to learn. And that's where we need to meet students where they're at, again, with the interactive learning, personalized learning, and teach them things that go beyond the school system.
I want to pick up on something that a moment ago that we heard from Satya when he talked about emotions, and that's something that is clearly important in the classroom, how we deal with emotions. And we'll spend a moment to just kind of look at that issue. One of the modalities of healing that I'm involved with is called curanderismo, ancient Mesoamerican healing. And one of the things that we do in that is to actually work with the emotions, where we want to learn what is it that's working in our emotions and what is not, and what is unhealthy is an emotion that's stuck. We say that there's no unhealthy emotion in and of itself, but what is problematic is when it occurs over and over and over again. It's tied to story, and it is a loop that never ends. So that's one of the things that we work with, is to attain a greater state of health through managing our emotions, through having a proper outlet for them to bring ourselves back to balance. But I want to have both of you weigh in on this issue of emotions and maybe even talk about how we manage them within a classroom environment. Satya, we'll start with you.
So like maybe if somebody wants to be physically fit, they need to eat healthy food, right? So similarly, if you want to become emotionally fit and fine, you need to nourish it. So like I told, meditation is one of the best approach, because when we reach to meditative state, what happens, our inner healing mechanism is very active to heal us at every level. That's the science of meditation. So even like if you practice meditation, emotionally you feel better because that part of our existence is getting nourished in that state. So I think this the basic thing is, the children getting more exposure to learn or experience meditation. And again, we can make this process easier by using sound healing techniques.
Good. Now let's talk about the connection between nutrition and emotion. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about here, DJ.
Yes, so nutrition, when it's poor, when it's not done where the student's eating the right amount, or individual in general, it can increase anxiety, it can increase depression. Those are the two of the biggest things, honestly, going on right now in our school systems. And when you correct the nutrition and what they're nourishing their body with, you start to see the improvements in both of those things.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so real quick before, 1 minute? No minutes. Okay, very good. Well, I want to just close by saying that I hope that we've addressed the issue of how relationship is tied into both healing, health, and proper learning in our educational environments, and how we can move from transmission of knowledge to connection, how we go from information to meaning, and how we go from isolation to belonging. And I believe that indigenous knowledge and the knowledge of healing practices in general can help us to do that within all learning environments. So I thank my presenters, and I thank all of you so much for giving us your attention this morning.
Thank you, panelists, for those valuable insights. Now let's take a moment to celebrate those who are pushing boundaries, inspiring change, and setting new standards through their work, whether in classrooms, communities, or across the broader education landscape. Please help me welcome Dr. Siegfried Esel, the Group President and CTO of Celtic Minds and Swiss Shore LLC, to the stage with a big round of applause as he will help deliver our award winners today. Our first award is for Anthony Johnson for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Dr. Anthony Johnson. The next award is for Andrea Thomas for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Andrea Thomas. The next award is for Elena Hurst. Elena Hurst for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Elena Hurst is an Executive Vice President at the PMA Breather Realty Group and founder of CEO of Otherhome.ca. She has over 20 years of experience across Toronto, Southern Ontario, Florida, and the Mexican Caribbean. Alana brings a strategic perspective spanning development, brokerage, and investment, including boutique luxury hotels, condominiums, and residential communities. Would you like to say anything? Would you like to say?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Andrea Thomas. I appreciate the recognition today and meeting so many people this week at Education 2.0, and wish everybody the best of luck educating and creating great futures moving forward.
Andrea Thomas. Okay, let me reach. Andrea Thomas was the founder of Voices of Awareness Foundation, Facing Fentanyl, and co-founder of Armor Families, leading national efforts to prevent fentanyl poisoning through education, awareness, data, and science. She connects impacted families with educators and law enforcement to deliver fact-based prevention education and life-saving tools. Andrea is the founder of National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day, August 21st, uniting families and organizations nationwide through events and coordinated awareness campaigns. That was our last award winner, Andrea Thomas. Our next award is for Hanan Latif. Hanan Latif for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Hanan Latif is a teaching assistant at the University of Illinois of Chicago. He is a Chicago-based doctoral researcher in criminology, law, and justice, where he has gained firsthand experience with inclusive supporting pathology as a teaching assistant over the past 3 years. Additionally, he brings over 4 years of experience in customer success across EdTech and AI platforms, including Education Pioneer Academics and Talk AI.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I would like to give a huge shout out to the 2.0 conference organizing team, specifically Education 2.0. This has been like a really enriching experience, so thank you. And yes, thank you for this recognition. I'm truly honored. I've had the privilege to work in like different sectors of the educational sphere, namely academia, education and correctional facilities, particularly the Cook County Jail, educational technology, and this August I'll be getting involved with Teach for America to work in K-12 schools in under-resourced places in Chicago. So the one thing that I've learned is that education is the main driver for positive impact in our societies, and I'm glad to be a part of that change. So thank you for this recognition.
The next award is for Jeanette Deleuze for Education 2.0 Conference Visionaries Award. Jeanette Deleuze. Our next award is for Kelly A. Watts. Kelly A. Watts. The next award is for Laura McDonald for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Laura serves as the Dean of the Faculty of Trades and Technology at Cuautla Polytech University. She is a strong advocate for promoting respectful workplace environments for all employees and students, and is passionate about advancing parity of esteem between vocational and undergraduate learning. She is currently pursuing a doctorate of education and educational leadership at Western University with an expected graduation in summer 2026.
So just want to say thank you for this award. This has been a wonderful conference, so thank you for all the work that you've done behind the scenes to put it together. I don't think any of us come into educational experiences expecting any sort of recognition. It's very nice when it happens, though, so I really appreciate this.
The next award is for Dr. Lisa Collins. Dr. Lisa Collins. The next award is for Dr. Mahina Hanman Gago for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Mahina Haman Gago serves as the Director of Athletics at Francis Parker School. Her career has been centered around a professional philosophy of using athletic experiences to teach young adults about life. She funded both her undergraduate and graduate degrees through basketball. Mahina is passionate about being an ambassador for education-based athletics, emphasizing the learning and growth that comes from this framework. Our next award winner is for Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Michael Lewis is currently working in Newton County Public Schools at Middle Ridge Elementary School. He is a published author, and his first book, God's Spiritual Transformation and Emotional Intelligence, won the International Impact Award in the Spiritual Insight category. He is also a life coach and is excited to walk into his purpose of helping others on their personal healing journey.
Thank you to Education 2.0. This is my first year at the conference, and I'm very excited because it gave me a lot of insight, new ideas to take with me back to my county, to my superintendent, but most importantly, it reminded me of why I'm an educator. I want to dedicate this to my kids, to Lauren, my daughters, Lauren, Micah, Cadence, and my 3-year-old son. My daughter calls me Miss Daddy Bluey because she said it like Bluey, but they're the reason why. And that's reminding me that education is key, it's important, and they're motivating me to continue to push our board members and superintendents to do great things so our kids cannot be left behind but become great leaders. Thank you.
The next award is for Raiden Beniana Sweatwan. Raiden Beniana Sweatwan. This next award is for Sydney Evans. Sydney Evans. These next few award winners are joining us via video. We have Atia Tandon. Atia Tandon.
If it's just that video or all of them.
Was it just that video or is it all of the award winners for video? All right. So we don't unfortunately have those videos up for you. Adita Tandon.
Agents, let me.
Hello, I am Aditya Tandon, Assistant Professor, Senior Scale in Computer Science and Engineering at ABES Engineering College, Ghaziabad, Uttar Pradesh, India, and the creator of See for Yourself YouTube channel. I am honored to receive the Excellence in Education Award at the Education 2.0 conference. Through my academic work and digital initiatives, I have focused on simplifying complex computer science concepts and making quality education accessible at scale. I have developed structured learning content and worked closely with students to bridge the gap between the theoretical understanding and practical applications. I believe education should be practical, accessible, and aligned with real-world skills. I sincerely thank the organizers for this recognition and my students for their continuous support and inspiration. This award motivates me to continue contributing to impactful and meaningful education. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Our next award winner is also via video, Dr. Catherine Benamo for Education 2.0 Conference Excellence in Education Award. Dr. Benamo is a professor of film and media studies affiliated with the Chicago Latino Studies in Latin America and Iberian Cultures at the University of California, Irvine, where she teaches both undergraduate and graduate courses. She is the author of 2 books, It's All True, Orson Welles' Pan America Odyssey, and Transnational Television and Latinx Diasporic Audiences, Abrazos Electronias in 4 global cities, as well as numerous journal articles. We're going to be pulling up that video in just a moment. We do have a few award winners that are going to be, we're going to get to those videos a little bit later today for everybody. Congratulations to all of our award winners today in this session. Your dedication and impact are truly shaping the future of education. It's now time for a short break, and it will be a great time to relax, enjoy your meal, and connect with the incredible people around you. While you're out there, feel free to share those memorable moments on #Education2Conf, and don't miss a chance to explore those exhibit booths and discover some exciting innovation. We'll also invite you to connect with Jatine Sidhu from the 2.0 conference team if you'd like to learn about our upcoming editions in Singapore and Dubai. Enjoy your break, and we'll see you back at 1:30.